Welcome to Revlog, where Aaron always brings it back to the Psalms.
That's right.
And Bryan doesn't know the difference between a thought and a question. So we'll see how he does today as we move forward. So today we are
Thank you for the second chance.
Second, it's every week.
All right. Thank you.
70 times
Again.
7. 70 times 7. 70 times 7.
See how biblical this is.
We are. We learned forgiveness
Wow.
I
when
wasn't
sitting with
prepared for
Bryan.
that, Pastor. All right.
Here we go. Let's get to 2 Samuel. We're in 2 Samuel 5 this week. So, Aaron, let's get to it. Tell us your initial thoughts on 2 Samuel 5.
David seeks after the Lord.
Yeah,
That,
amen.
that through the political machinations, through
Yep.
the strategic battles that come, there is always some sense of seeking after the Lord, which is where we know Saul went wrong.
Right.
So if you just
Yep.
go back to 1 Samuel and you realize you can trace it to the day, this is where Saul took a wrong turn. And so he made a covenant at Hebron before the Lord. And all of these battles, there was some
Yep.
seeking after God. We even get God the strategist. I mean, telling him,
Right.
how to
Yep.
go about this. It's fascinating, but that constant communication, seeking after him.
Yeah, was it Philippians 4? Let everything be taken before the God.
Yep.
Your
That's right.
prayer and your supplications with thanksgiving, you present everything before the Lord. And so this is David. Even these battles, he's going for the Lord and presenting them,
Yes.
and asking God's opinion. I mean, it's a perfect example for us.
Yeah,
Even in the brutality, we have this example of following God.
that's right. I think that's very important because you mentioned political machinations and the totality of life. That this didn't become a religious war per se. I mean, it was a geopolitical activity.
Right.
Right.
But it became a war that possessed a moral center.
Yeah.
And that was that is that it wasn't predicated on one man's
That's right.
thoughts.
Yeah.
It was
Preserving God's people.
Exactly. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
It wasn't just David's finite observation or his shifting, perspective or whatever, and the persecution of that war or those military campaigns. I mean, they had the capacity for flaws.
Right.
They did, but the effects of war were mitigated, I think, by David's recasting of this activity in a larger context.
No, I think that's right. I think that links those two, both of your thoughts there, where this was not about David's ego.
That's
and
right.
you see that
Exactly.
as
Well
he
said.
goes before the Lord, he's saying, Lord, you show me the way. It's not about him and his selfish ways. And you even see that as the battles play out, and this moral center is not around who David is, but it's who the Lord is.
That's right. And I think that the word imminence, God within the context of activity, his imminence, it's something that we don't often think about. We think of asking, we often hear of people saying, I'm going to do something for God. I want to do something for God. But really the stuff of life is just doing what is before us. We can do things for God, and it's good to will that and want that. But it's the everyday, warriors war, teachers teach, cashiers cashier. I mean, we do these
Do
things.
they?
Well, I see them. I see them with the transactions, but I think that looking for where God is imminent, where He is, where He resides
Yeah, I
in
think-
those things is important.
I think you're right when you use that language, say I'm going to do something for God. That seems more to be a distant God, where
Yes, that's
God's
right.
up here and I'm going to do something down here with Him, rather than working alongside Him
Yes,
here.
exactly.
Do that, yeah.
It's external rather than with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's move to the questions and see if we get this right this time.
Okay.
So, Aaron, what's your question of 2 Samuel 5?
Honestly, who would think that lame and weak and blind would be a deterrent for battle? I mean, I honestly read that so many times going, they told David not to go that way because the blind and the lame and the weak are going to overthrow him. And am I missing something? I mean, that probably not the best way to tell a warrior, don't go that way.
There's blind men.
Well, even as a push against, as a taunt. You're
Yeah.
even the blind and the lame can repel you. I mean,
Yeah, so in the comments today, answer Aaron's question. Help him understand how these were the deterrent. So we'd love to hear from you. So Brian, what questions did you have of the text this
can
week?
I ask a question now? Is that-
Please,
Oh, okay,
like,
all right.
time for a question.
How can we hear what the Bible says when it is descriptive rather than prescriptive?
Yeah.
And, we see these things. It doesn't mean that we need to prosecute a war. It doesn't mean
That's
that we need
right.
to take concubines. How do we
Right.
hear what the Bible says when it just describes what's going on?
Absolutely.
And what you've just said there is making the Old Testament, making it worthwhile reading Second Samuel, because sometimes these
Yep.
modern we think that's then God
Yeah.
was working then and this is now, but the Bible has something to say to us through Second Samuel.
right.
So unpacking that is worth our time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So help us with that. We'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And thank you for coming to Revlog.